It is House of Strauss. We are back with super duper friend of the pod, Ryan Glasspiegel, man of controversy, someone who just got grilled by an acerbic Northeastern podcast host. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good, Ethan. I just had a baby on
that's Sunday. The bigger news. Sorry. Congratulations. Sorry to say.
So, and then, still in the hospital, I broke the news with Andrew Marchand that Erica Ayers-Badon, who's formerly Erica Nardini, is leaving her job as CEO at Barstool. And I would guess most people listening to this saw it, but Dave Portnoy went after me on X because I reached out to him for comment, and then the story was up on the site less than 20 minutes later. And so he said, this is why people hate the media. He should have his head cut off for saying, like, I couldn't be reached when he published it 19 minutes after reaching out. So I guess, what's your take on all this?
I am going to side on the anti-decapitate Ryan side of things.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, mostly because you just had a new baby. Congratulations. That just seems overly harsh. You've got kids. So that's number one. I think this might be a chasm between our perspective and many of the listeners / viewers, because there is this sense that there should be more time to respond. I was arguing it with friends who said, no, you can't ask for comment and only give, 19 minutes, was it?
It's 18. He said it was 19.
Okay, it was 18 minutes, technically 18 minutes. And this sort of game, it reminds me of that Peter Guber quote that there are no rules, but you break them at your peril. I think people sometimes assume there are rules when there are not. The main rule is don't lie. The main rule is it should be true. That is the main rule. This is not a situation that many are sensitive to. I feel like there's a conflation happening here. There is a practice that happens where Taylor Lorenz accuses your institution of being racist or some form of bigotry and then sends you word for comment. And then the post goes up 1 minute later, and it's clear that this is perfunctory. She doesn't actually want your perspective. It's a hit piece. This is part of a disingenuous operation. And so I feel like some people receive what you did like that, but it's not that. This isn't a hit piece. It's a piece of breaking news. It's a personnel decision. And even by telling Dave what you told Dave, you're risking that he's going to run the market first and he's going to announce it and he's going to scoop you. So that's 18 minutes more than perhaps he should have had under the circumstances, though I think you do, for best practices, have to send that message. Now, you gave an interesting explanation because I heard you on the Kirk Minihane show. Is that the way to pronounce it properly? Minahan. It's very Irish, I think, which is that you were more certain that you had it nailed down in that very short, by the end of that very short time span. So there is a little bit of, you would have presented it differently had you had that confidence at the beginning. So I understand it from your perspective. I hate to be pro-media, considering that I'm trying to stage an insurgency over here on Substack, but I did not think you did anything wrong. And I have to say, I thought you acquitted yourself very well on the Kurt Minihane show.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. He said that in the comments, he said he just shouldn't have written that he reached out because I had no time to respond. There's a few things. He would not have been happy about this if I'd given him an hour and he hadn't responded. He wouldn't have been happy about it if I didn't put in the story that we reached out. And he certainly wouldn't have been happy about it if we just published it without reaching out to him in the first place. And so if you look at it under the lens that, like, the most important part of my job and my career is breaking big news. Like, I've been in the marketplace a long time. There aren't people banging down the doors for my services as a sports talker or a broadcaster.
Speak for, I mean, don't speak for everybody. We at House of Strauss feel quite blessed to have your presence. But
this is pro bono, and I have to pay for 3 kids, and so
yes.
Like, look, would I want to be a afternoon drive talk show host instead of what I do? Yeah, I think I would. But what my job and my career is contingent on me breaking big news as often as I can. And so I have to when I have this nailed down, and Andrew and I have this nailed down as a team, we got to go. And, I feel terrible that this is probably, I guess, permanently destroyed the minor positive relationship with Dave Portnoy that I had, because for a while it would be a nice thing where, they have Connor Stallions on their football show and I reach out to him for comment. He sends me a snarky comment. I put it in a story and then he shares it. And that's probably happened 8 or 9 times over the last decade. I interviewed him the night he first sold the company and wrote a big feature on how they were gunning to be mainstream, which I think held up very well. And he's followed me on X for, 8 or 9 years. So if I threw that away over a scoop, I don't know that it's necessarily worth it. But just in the moment, we had to go with it. And the other thing is, it's like a minor distinction, but as we were publishing, I was like, we had to go with it. I'm sorry. If you have comment, add it later. He didn't include that. I mean, I'd be pissed off at me if I were him, because we don't have the same incentives. He's running a company with several hundred people who work there, and they're finding out from an outside institution that their very popular and talented and successful and accomplished CEO is leaving. And so they're like, immediately when there's a change like that, everyone's like, what does that mean for me? And so they're learning that through the New York Post instead of through communication from him. And I'm sure he would rather, and he conducts business by announcing things publicly himself. And so clearly he would rather that some combination of him and Erica bring that news not only to the company, but to the public. And here we are usurping that. And I didn't really give him enough time to at least communicate internally. But as you said, every minute that we waited, I risked him just announcing it himself. What does he owe me to not just turn around and make a video and post it, or tweet it, or a blog, or some way to capitalize on this news on behalf of attention for Barstool? And so it's shitty. I understand that I look like an asshole, but it's just kind of what I gotta do.
I'm wondering, is there anything he could have offered you to embargo it? I mean, what could he have possibly traded?
He couldn't, because it wasn't just my scoop. I'm working on it with a team. We're communicating with editors, and the editors are communicating with the homepage and the notification section. And the way it really did come together very fast. I think it was under an hour from when we first got the first tip to publishing it. And so that was why when it went up, it was only 3 or 4 paragraphs, very quick with the news. And then it got elongated from there. And, because it's tricky, because he didn't respond at all. He just, until the next morning when he told me to go F myself and said, I don't give statements to rats and things of that nature in the DMs. And so, it was just, I don't think that he could have gotten us to hold off. Maybe if he had called and said, I want you to break this news, but I'm going to write an email internally right now, just wait 5 minutes, maybe that could have happened. But we really had it very, very confident to go with it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have published it, because when we publish, we're very sure. And so it just, it was a situation where he was going to be unhappy or I was going to be unhappy. I don't think he could have made a deal with us.
Yeah, anything successful, typically in journalism, beyond a few sort of types of articles that people feel inspired by, is going to leave a toxic trail. And I remember, I think Sam Amick had some huge article that got a ton of subscriptions over at The Athletic. And I went over to congratulate him because I saw him at the event level of the arena. And he was not on cloud nine. He was miserable. He was fielding all these phone calls from angry people because things that are interesting to people, they tend to be interesting for a reason. And that's because somebody doesn't want it out there. And so by unleashing it out there to the world, even if it's good for you and you need it to feed your ever expanding family, in this case, there are just going to be externalities, as we should say. But I'm wondering if there's a bigger story beyond the breaking of the news, because somebody might be hearing this, listening to this and going, well, this is similar to when Woj tweets out a trade that we're going to know about anyway. Why is it so contentious? Is Barstool okay? I mean, what is the story behind this? They've lost their big gambling deal. I had a reader ask me, which business model do you like of these various entities, and the Ringer and Barstool? And I think I said Barstool because they've built a universe unto themselves, which is very rare. But I don't know how they're making money currently. Do you think that you got slammed in part because there's some tension behind the scenes?
No, I mean, I don't think that was part of it. Maybe tension behind the scenes as he's thinking, how did this get out there? We're like supposed to be a pirate ship. How does this get out? I think it was more, he was mad about that. I think that they have, maybe they have too many people. I don't know their books, but there's certainly a sustainable business there. Like, because they can just go direct to consumer with their merchandise and move millions of dollars of apparel at a time. They're very nimble the way that they react to like things that are like viral that can become wearable. And, you saw it over Christmas when they moved X million dollars of merch to drive Y million into bonuses for their behind the scenes talents. And they've got a bunch of partnerships. They've got, programmatic Google advertising on their site. Who knows? Like they built like the high noon business. Like, there aren't very many media brands, maybe only them, that could take like, seltzer. It's a relative commodity product. I mean, maybe someone prefers high noon to White Claw or whatever. And I guess they would make the case that it's better. But they came into a marketplace that was already saturated and grew a huge position on it. And I think the biggest reason for that wasn't their product. It was Portnoy and Barstool pushing it. And so when you can create a beverage out of thin air like that, there's ways for them to make money, but that's a little bit different than why should Erica stay? Because Dave has been public that he wants to run it as like effectively a break-even business. He says he has enough money from the previous sales to live the rest of his life. I mean, his real estate holdings are public. So he doesn't want it to grow to be a juggernaut. Like, they've talked about how they don't know if they're going to keep their bowl game because it's tough to make the math work. And so they're not going to be they're not going to be growing like they were from 2016 through early 2023, where when Erica came on, Chernin Group had just invested in Barstool at a valuation of like $10 to $15 million. It grew to sell for over $500 million, finalized early last year. And so they're not going to have that. They're not going to go from, I don't think they're worth $500 million now because they, like you said, they don't have the gambling money coming in. They sold it back to Dave for $1. So it's worth probably several $100 million with Dave running it. But can it become a several billion-dollar company? And is that even what Portnoy wants? I don't know. And so what Erica said in her video was, the work I came here to do is done. They got it sold. After she was there, they sold another chunk of it to Chernin at $100 million valuation. And then Penn bought it at a $550 million valuation. They bought like 36% of it or something with the option to buy the rest of it early last year. Then they exercised that option. And by the way, if Barstool didn't sell to Penn first, and it wasn't known that they would run into all this problems with state gambling regulators, it would have sold for more than $550 million at one point during this sports gambling gold rush. Like, there was a reason Penn exercised that option early last year before realizing that, like, they got to the river and had to fold. And so it definitely can be a very successful business, but the question is, how big will the scale be?
I think, without knowing their books and without, saying that, oh, they must be totally rickety, I do wonder, when the CEO leaves, I think it indicates something about sports media. In a way, Barstool might seem better positioned than the others. It does seem like the clock is striking midnight. The gambling money has been pumping, it's been flowing, but I don't know if it's the gold rush, as you were saying, that we've seen before. So there might be something of a slowdown overall. Now there are two places to take this right here. We can go a little bit more Portnoy and how going at you is maybe indivisible from what made the brand so popular. Or we can go how you prepared to go into battle, to go into the crucible of the Minihan podcast, which I thought that by the end of it, everybody was very friendly. It was interesting. I think he likes it. Your father is a fan of his program, and so that's part of it. We'll go that direction because it's interesting when you go into one of these slightly adversarial situations where you're a person of controversy and you've got to represent yourself like so. I don't think I do a great job of it. I did a podcast with Nick Wright, and I thought that I had the position that's harder, which is ultimately defending Aaron Rodgers, who's very flawed, against the media coverage of him. And I mean, Nick is just such a good arguer. He's incredible at it. So it was difficult. I came out of it thinking I did pretty well, but I had a moment where he asked me, he did one of those typical litigator Nick, put a man to a decision poker game things of what did I think was being insinuated by what Rodgers said. And I think I first stalled it. I eventually answered it, but then you have the clip of me not immediately answering the question, which looks evasive. And I was just, damn, I thought I did a good job, but I had this moment that looks not so great. And I clearly don't know what I'm doing in this arena. I thought you did really well in this situation. I thought you were conciliatory where it would be a good idea to be conciliatory, and you stuck to your guns when it would be a good idea to stick to your guns. What was your approach and what is your self-assessment?
Yeah, I didn't listen back to it, but I felt pretty good as it was going because, again, it's just Dave and I have different agendas in this situation. And look, when you have a big scoop, you gotta go. To hold it is to risk losing it. And to get the scoop, as I said earlier, is the currency for like how my career has to grow. And so like your analogy with Amick, it's just, it stinks that, that it had to happen in a way that made someone who, by the way, like I respect the hell out of Dave Portnoy for the way that he built his business and created.
Which we should say is unusual in media, in official media, for somebody to say what you just said. I mean, look, Dave, you're casting away one of the few media friends out there when you go at Ryan and you chop off his head, which we can't come back from. We can't come back from you losing your head.
No, and, Kirk was asking if I hate him for doing that or like took it literally. No, I don't take it literally. If you were, it's like that line, I think from Up, if you worry, then you suffer twice. Like, I did have a lot of people, you know, not just tweeting at me, but sending direct messages, crossing platforms to Instagram and Facebook to send me nasty messages. You know, my email is public and I did not get a nasty email that I know of. So I was a little
So no. That has meaning. That means something. It's real. When you've really pissed people off, they send you the emails because there's no social component to it. Although the DMs, there's no social component to it, but maybe you would, I don't know, post the DM or something.
I think emails, it's weird. Emails kind of on the way out because it's just all these other messages have replaced it for it's emails kind of like for official correspondence. And that's basically it now.
Well, that was my determination when Kevin Durant went at me. And if I went on social media, people were just, it was an avalanche of hate and everything else. And I locked my Instagram because I had seen some of the stuff that other people in the industry were just randoms are saying horrible things about your wife and, you know, your family.
Oh yeah, I had a couple of those.
Oh, that's fun. That's nice.
Yeah, someone like found a tweet of a photo of my wife and I and my oldest when she was our only kid from like 4 years ago. And it's like, oh, you have an ugly wife. That's why. Like, just, I disagree. But I mean, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
That's why you break news. Yeah, that's very mean. And
yeah, Donald Trump Jr. weighed in. He responded to Portnoy saying these are disgusting people. And it's just like, you know, I wasn't writing a hit piece. I wasn't going at him, like asking him to defend himself against dubious allegations with like airtight deadline as he's accused writers of doing before, as like Bill Ackman accused Business Insider of doing. I don't know. I think that if I said we're publishing this, if my first message to him was we're publishing this now because we have it nailed down. If you want to add a comment, we can update the story. Yeah. Do you think he's any less mad at me?
No. There's just no. You were in a misaligned incentive situation. That's the way I see it, and I think it could swing back the other way. It wouldn't be surprising to me if something happened, like emergency press conference. You know, I'm not a Glasspiegel guy. I set off with his head, but then I saw this, and you know, it's like they live in the moment. It goes back and forth. Everything's a little pro wrestling. It's in variance. I think you're just now part of this universe in a weird way. I would make the point I was going to make earlier, though, which is that when the Kevin Durant thing happened, nobody sent me. There was just one guy who sent me an angry email. And I took that as an indication that, OK, this hatred is a mile wide and an inch deep. There's just not much here. I don't think many people are angry. Most people I saw were actually taking your side. Maybe I'm a little bit maybe I'm in a bit of a skewed world there. But even in places where I would have expected that it would have been all Dave, and there were people saying, I back you, Dave, to the end of the earth. But many people were saying, hey, you know, he's got to break the news. He said, they said he could not be reached immediately for comment, as the operative phrase. But it's just funny. I mean, it's funny to be in this sort of space where where they hit back. I mean, I felt like I was an observer to this. Speaking of the Minihan show, where I went on The Town, Matt Bellamy's podcast, and I was talking about Pat McAfee, and we can get into some of the other media stuff happening out there. But I'm on there talking about McAfee, and he's talking about how ESPN is just forever trying this gambit of trying to get these young people into the fold, and that the Barstool thing didn't work out. And I say, yeah. And then he says, and I'm paraphrasing, because Dave Portnoy was a douchebag or something to that effect. If I had said my yeah just a few seconds later, after that part, I feel like I would have been in the line of fire. But my yeah was timed up before he said it. Minihan, because he's with Barstool and he's friends with Dave, excerpts it, goes after Bellany. And then I got a little taste of what you're getting a taste of. I looked at my mentions, and it's just this sea of people seething and raging at Bellany, and I'm almost just in between two parties movement, like in Night at the Roxbury, where they're dancing and one person is in between. I don't think any of it was directed at me, but it was just, oh my God, wow, this is, I mean, it's an impressive level of traction with a cohort, but yeah, I don't think Bellany cares. I think what did Portnoy do? He tweeted about it. I've tried to get better at punching down as I've gotten older and wiser. The only problem is I never get to punch at all because of how successful Barstool has become. So I'm not even going to mention this Matt Bellany guy because look at his face. Screams loser. And I got to say, similar to the thing you said on your wife, I think it's a perfectly nice picture of Matt. I think it's a perfectly fine picture. But yeah, it's part that's part of the strategy. That's part of how they operate. That's part of what reads as legitimate. That
so
it's
you're
not so
saying
careful.
that by the transitive property, I've got to be on a higher level in Dave's mind than Matt Bellany because he did punch at me.
Well, I think he was saying he was punching. He was making an exception to punch at Bellany, but in the case of you, he didn't have to even couch it.
He didn't qualify it as an exception. He just said my head should be chopped off.
Yeah, you're clearly equals at this point.
It comes down to I would guess I permanently impaired this relationship. Not that I was like ever very important to him, but I would say my guess is the next time I want a silly like Connor Stallions comment, I'm not going to get it.
Maybe
I probably am not going to ask for it, honestly. But it's just on to the next story. But I don't know. There's probably nothing that I can do to get him to like forgive me in this case. I think he holds grudges. I've never seen someone come back from a grudge with him, and so it just kind of is what it is.
Well, I mean, you could. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't aware of his grudge history. I would assume that there's a better chance of you going on a Barstool podcast with him on it than Kevin Durant appearing on this podcast with me. That's my assumption, but.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of expecting Kirk to have us thrown together.
You were prepared for that.
I was at least prepared for the possibility that he was just going to like repeatedly call me every name in the book, and I was going to explain myself, and it was just going to be a totally unsatisfactory explanation to him.
Yeah, you guys would not have aligned. The Minihan, for how aggressive it gets and calls guys fucking idiot and all this stuff, he did seem like he kind of met you halfway. And there was a little bit of like, I get it. And your daughter, what's the daughter's name? You know, is a little bit, you softened him at the end.
Yeah, it was just, it was all, I think that, and he thinks that he like figured out who the source was. And so that was also like a contributing factor in how he approached it.
I still want to be in Barstool land for a little while longer because I just think it's an interesting business story. And you've been in the line of fire. I've been in the line of fire adjacent. That moment where ESPN almost had Van Talk, really did it, was filming episodes, and it all blew up. That's a huge moment in sports media. That's a huge moment in sports. I mean, it's crazy to look back on that. That was 2017.
The craziest thing about it is that was a show that was on ESPN2 in the middle of the night. It was on at like, I think it might have been at like 1 a.m. on ESPN2. And because, you know, they were trying that late night stuff for a little while on ESPN2, because this was still the era where ESPN2 was a farm system for ESPN, where, you know, they plucked First Take and moved it over. They plucked His and Hers and made that SC6. And then this was going to like, okay, maybe we're going to replenish the bench a little bit. Now they don't really have a bench like that. They just use ESPN2 for reruns.
No, it was on a weird time slot. I think it was more camel's nose in the tent, is the idea that there was going to be a merging of the two brands. If you believe that it would even have been possible, I thought it was instructive. I thought it was interesting. There's a video of when they found out that it was going to be killed, when Big Cat found out, and I'm drawing a blank on the
PFT commenter.
PFT commenter. God, I'm sorry to him. I mean, they've got one of the biggest podcasts. When they found out about it, and to me, it was instructive because so much of the narrative, I might be scooping something I write, but so much of the narrative with these things is that Barstool's going against the man, going against corporate media, the suits. Right now with McAfee, you're seeing people support him. I saw Matt Barnes say that he's going against the suits. But it was clear it wasn't the suits that blew up that merger between Barstool and ESPN. It was employees.
You know what's funny? The same executive at ESPN was at the center of both of them. It was Burke Magnus who brought Barstool Van Tuck over, and it's Burke Magnus who, along with Jimmy Pitaro and Bob Iger, brought Pat McAfee into ESPN.
Well, center of it, sure, but this was, by the indication of that video, about employees, female employees, not having it because of things that David said. So when Dave went at Bellany, I don't think Bellany would change his position at all on it, because there were certain comments made about Sam Ponder, who was at ESPN, about how she was only there on the football broadcast to make men hard, and just stuff that Dave said, top extemporaneously on podcasts or what have you, that were just not being abided by employees. And so I think it does show you that a lot of corporate positions, it's not top down. It's not, hey, the big bosses are uptight and they just don't like it and they nix it. There's this other component, often an ideological component, where they're really middle out. And wait, is that from Silicon Valley where they said middle out? I'm not, but yeah, where it's really about a critical mass of employees having an issue with something, and that ultimately breaks the will of the company. And it's not just a bunch of fat cat suits. It's really something else. And I think it was a good example of that.
Yeah. And they couldn't just hire Big Cat and PFT commenter away either, because, and this goes back to Portnoy as a savvy businessman, as like part of my take was blowing up, he gave them like multi-year ironclad contracts. And so it couldn't just be ESPN had to partner with Barstool to get that show. And Portnoy was adamant that they use the word Barstool in the name of the show because it was a licensing agreement. And so, like, there's all sorts of hypotheticals. Like, if the show was called Pardon My Take and it didn't have Barstool in the name, but they continued to work at Barstool, would that have been okay? But it was really weird because, all of these judgmental people in media, a lot of them ended up having really heinous tweets from like the 2008 to 2012 era, where it was like a just different medium, and it doesn't make them right. And it doesn't make, bad things that people said not bad. But there was a sense that it was like radio where it goes out and then it's into the ether. There wasn't any like kind of belief that these tweets were part of a permanent record.
I'm so against that too. I'm so against this conventional wisdom that emerged that the past and the present are all part of the same thing. And we should judge after you get hired for a position. We should dredge up things you've said and hold you to them as though you just got hired and started announcing it all into a megaphone. I think it's insane. I've certainly seen friends of mine have it happen to them, but I would feel the same way regardless. I don't think that we can sanely progress as a species without there being a distinction and a difference between the past and the present. Just fundamentally, it doesn't really work. And I do think it's fading a little bit. There's less of this culture of we care about what you said in the past.
I think they've gotten almost everybody, and everybody they haven't gotten deleted their old tweets.
Yeah. Yeah, now we know. I think I'm in a position where I could say almost anything, though, and not face repercussions, at least at my own site. So I'm not truly taking advantage. Now, which way do we go here? We talked a lot of McAfee last time. That's evolving, but maybe instead we should talk about peacockification. Do you want to talk peacockification? Do you have a take on? So I wrote something about how Chiefs Dolphins being behind the paywall on NBC's Peacock reportedly got 23 million viewers. We don't know how real it is. We do know it's regarded within the industry as a massive success. My argument, Ryan, is that this is the starting pistol. This is a change. Everybody right now is going to want the big event that they can paywall that wasn't typically paywalled. And we are now in a peacockified era. Am I overreading the moment? Do you have additional thoughts?
I think that for the foreseeable future, the NFL is going to keep a vast majority of its regular season and playoff games on broadcast TV. And I think any other league that tries to, except for maybe college football playoff, that tries to put these games behind a streaming paywall is going to be met with a rude awakening about how much people are willing to pay for those games. That doesn't mean that the NBAs and MLBs of the world won't try. And I think we are going to see, Amazon Prime and maybe even Peacock exclusive NBA playoff games in the coming rights deal. But I don't think anybody can have the same impact on drawing subscribers as the NFL can. WWE and UFC are close because not close to the NFL, but they're close in the sense of being able to do it within the scale of their own businesses because combat sports have been pay-per-view for a long time. And WWE was on pay-per-view before it was on Peacock. And then they had their own over the top network. And then their pay-per-views. So WWE Network used to cost $10 a month. And then all of that migrated to Peacock, and Peacock is only $6 a month. So if you're a WWE fan, you would think you're getting a great deal on Peacock. Go ahead.
I mean, I didn't give that enough. I didn't give that enough say so. I was a little bit, I wasn't aware enough when I wrote about it of the good parts of Peacock, because unlike you, I'm not really a WWE guy, and I'm not a Big Ten guy. You're kind of in the right Peacock zone, and so I think
I was one of the first Peacock subscribers alive, and so they've got the Big Ten exclusive. Like they have a bunch of Big Ten football and basketball games that I would have already needed to subscribe for, and Peacock has a lot of good entertainment properties. They've got like the full archives of like The Office, Yellowstone, SNL. Like you can go and watch those classic like Chris Farley, Adam Sandler SNL episodes on there one night. And so they've got a lot of stuff, and it costs a lot less than Netflix and Max do. So I didn't have a problem with the NFL doing this, but I do understand the slippery slope argument where it's like, how many freaking streaming services am I going to be forced to pay for as a sports fan? And the answer is several.
The answer is several. And I saw Florio saying that people who write behind a paywall really shouldn't be criticizing, that fans could criticize, but not you, somebody like myself who writes behind a paywall. Now, to what you said about putting a playoff game behind the paywall, an NBA playoff game, there's this other factor. It's this fear factor where, do you want to get exposed? I mean, this is the ultimate testament to how much you matter to people when you put it behind a paywall, or can matter to people. And I do think there are people in my industry where they might not want to do what I'm doing because it's scary. I'm not trying to look at it all cockily. Where I'm going, oh yeah, like you couldn't be me, yada yada, because I went into it with that fear. Because if you go on Substack and you don't find any resonance, it's an economic failure, but there's also this sense of, oh man, it's a bit of an ego failure as well. Like, oh, this is the level that I'm at. And that might not be fair, because maybe the real answer is that you aren't somebody who should work for yourself, but you're somebody who can be part of a team. But I think that is scary. And I look at that from the league perspective, where if you're the NBA, I mean, it's risky to put a playoff game on there if nobody watches, right? Because then that bullet's out of the chamber, or what, I don't know what stupid metaphor am I looking for there. But you don't have the NBA's version of how it can always move a team to Seattle until it moves the team to Seattle. You don't have that final revenue stream answered for. I'm just doing a bad job presenting. You know what I'm saying, Ryan. You get what I'm saying. That you basically have demonstrated that you cannot reach a certain ceiling and everybody can see that. So I don't know if the NBA is going to do that, because it is a bit of a risk. Maybe if it's the Lakers, sure.
You think that they're going to get in this new deal with NBC, as everybody is predicting, and not have any playoff games that are Peacock exclusive? That just doesn't make any sense with the strategy of what NBC is doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm saying
every new deal they've had as Peacock exclusive content.
Okay. To be clear, before the deal. After the deal, it's who cares? We've signed the deal. Like, we don't care. That doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, I don't know if they would want to throw it at Disney Plus right now, is what I'm saying. That put a game behind the paywall. But if you sign a deal with Amazon, and I think that's all Amazon would be interested in, it really is just really important high leverage stuff like the playoffs. I think the problem for the NBA is, I mean, people really want the playoffs and they want the finals, but it's this regular season that's an issue for them. And I can't really see any sort of way that would be behind a paywall. But yeah, is it a first round? Is it a second round? And what would we look at? What kind of number would we look at if they put a playoff game in the NBA behind a paywall?
So the NFL, I mean, this blew past everybody's expectations. They got 23 million viewers on that game. And so, yeah, it was on broadcast in the local markets in Kansas City and Miami. But Peacock only has 30 million subscribers and 23 million people watched this game. Yeah. So the NFL is just such an unstoppable juggernaut. It's like Cartman's Trapper Keeper. It's a very obscure reference. Maybe like 8 people get it, but it's absorbing everything in its path. Mays said he does get it. And he also noted that the Bravo universe is in this Peacock bundle. And so the other thing that's good about Peacock is if you are a cord cutter and you don't have cable, they get all of the Sunday Night Football games and all of NBC's Olympics content. And people love the Olympics. So, I mean, you and I, maybe not as much, but like in terms of like they draw second to the NFL in sports. And so there is a lot of good stuff on Peacock. But yes, to your point, if MLB goes behind Peacock, how many subscribers are they going to drive for like a Rays versus Orioles wild card game? Probably not that many.
No, I don't think so. God, we got to get Bob Costas on to talk about Peacock. That would be very interesting. I'm just thinking about the Olympics. That's what's firing on in my head. There's another conversation to be had one day about how people who don't like sports like the Olympics, which is just so interesting to me because it is sports. Yeah, I mean, there's something interesting happening. It's so profitable because you can double dip. Right? It's not like the NFL had radio silence during those ad breaks where we all stared at Andy Reid's frozen mustache. No, they were showing you ads for the thing you subscribe to. So that is so appealing to these broadcasters. And so I do think it's bad for the other sports, if I had to guess. I think it's bad for the other sports that aren't NFL or aren't college football because it's just resource allocation. This makes the NFL an even more in-demand product, Ryan, than it was before. The idea that you can get 23 million people watching it and get people funneled to the streaming service that has the rights for it while getting the advertising dollars on top of it. I mean, this is going to create a situation where football games, I think there's even more of a premium for it. And since there isn't infinite money, it's zero sum, that's less money for the other sports. Or am I crazy?
Yeah. Although I think at this point, I think it's just established the NFL is going to be so much bigger and needs to be treated differently than these. But I actually think that's a fair point that, ESPN might have less money to give to the NBAs of the world the more they give to the NFL. And we might be seeing that now, where I think that the NBA rights aren't at the level that the league probably expected them to be. And a big part of that is that Fox, NBC, CBS, and ESPN just had to double what they're paying for the NFL.
Yeah, I think there is only so much. There's only so much. And if you can spend it on college football and that expanded playoff, and they haven't really sold the rights for that, right?
No, they did. ESPN is getting all of it for at least the next 2 years.
Okay, so Mays,
I think actually no. I think ESPN got all of it for like 10 years, but it was I don't know exactly how many years. It was a smaller increase in rights fees than what you would have expected, though.
So, Mays, I'm supposed to know that and be an all-knowing oracle on sports TV rights. The people are going to think I'm a fraud. So let's just edit that out and instead edit me completely confident. Yeah, but the rights, the rights are already secured with ESPN and college football. I got confused, honestly, by that whole situation and what was being negotiated right there as it was happening. I mean, what rights are even up other than NBA right now? That's why we talk NBA rights so often, it seems. It seems like
WWE is up, AEW, the other wrestling promotion, is up, and UFC is up in about a year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people consider pro wrestling to be sports rights, but that's a whole other conversation. I mean, it's somewhere, it's neither fish nor fowl. Okay, so let's end on this. We're at war. We're at war, Ryan. Your Packers, your Packers are going against yes, we claim ownership, myself and Anthony Mays, our San Francisco 49ers, just destroyed Dallas. The most shocking game of the playoff weekend. What's the confidence level? How you feeling? What do you think?
I feel so. When I play blackjack, I play like a progressive style where if I'm winning, I add to the bets and like try to get on a streak where I'm playing with house money. The Packers are playing with house money right now, and it's, the Niners have knocked the Packers out of the playoffs at least 5 times in the last 25 years, starting with T.O. catching the ball. Kaepernick did it twice. And it's happened at least 2 other times off the top of my head. And so 4-0 since 2012, plus that T.O. game that I mentioned. So that's at least 5. I don't remember if there was one in between those. So the Packers have met their match at the hands of the Niners. And I guess there's the question well, maybe the bye week slowed the Niners a little bit and they could be a little bit rusty, whereas the Packers have de facto been in playoff games for the last month and a half. Every game was must win. And so I don't know. But maybe they ran out of gas and the Niners are rested. What I think the Packers are going to do is they're going to run the ball a lot to try to like neutralize the Niners pass rush. And they're going to be snapping the ball at the end of the play clock. So this is going to be a game where there's less possessions to go around as long as the Packers can move the ball like this. than there would ordinarily be in a game. And so this is long-winded, but I think the Packers do have a puncher's chance. Are they above 50-50 win? Of course not, but I think the 10-point line is a little high.
Yeah, I wonder strategically. I mean, the Jordan Love story is a big story. It's so funny how wild the swings are in NFL assessment. We're going into Cowboys Packers. If you ask 100 NFL analysts who is the better quarterback between Dak Prescott and Jordan Love, 100 out of 100 go, well, I mean, Dak Prescott right now. And then 3 quarters later, the new consensus is, well, obviously Jordan Love is better than Dak Prescott. I mean, we all know that now. That's what we know. By the way, I agree with that take. I agree with the adjusted take that Jordan Love is better than Dak Prescott. I mean, he, in that big moment, was totally locking in on CeeDee Lamb and not seeing open guys, and it was completely devastating. And Jordan Love showed this incredible talent, his signature, similar to Rodgers, that weird thing where he's backing up and then throws the ball and it comes out as though he stepped into it is absolutely insane. So
it's such a weird like contortion thing. It's like if somebody else could do what like Mariano Rivera or Pedro Martinez could do with their tiny frames. I don't understand like how they have 3 straight quarterbacks who can throw the ball hard without stepping into it. It's miraculous.
That's the only thing they scout for and develop in Green Bay. That's it really, I mean, it's just, it's incredible that you've had this run of the 3 in a row. It's looking like right now.
As I'm watching the talk shows, there's been very little, the Packers might be really good talk. It's everything on Monday was the shocking collapse of the Cowboys. And even now, this game isn't getting like previewed that much. Like Peter Schrager, to his credit, did a long thing on like, this is who these Packers receivers are. And they're like top 4 or 5 receivers and their 2 tight ends are all rookies or in their second year. And so like they've got 2 to 3 more years of club control on all of them. And it's kind of wild. I have no idea how they're going to figure out who to pay from this group. That's actually like a good problem to have.
Yeah, to make a Simmons-esque NBA analogy, they're very Oklahoma City Thunder, where they are early. They've got a ton of young talent that's not being paid a lot. And I think they're just so early that people don't even know how to preview them. I mean, for a team that's a public team, as Green Bay is, not a lot of name recognition. I mean, people really in the know, in the weeds of the NFL, know that they've got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, but we don't know these guys. They haven't been introduced to us.
And they've got like a ridiculous amount of dead cap between Rodgers being gone and David Bakhtiari, their like star left tackle, has played almost none in 3 years. And so like, just look at how much they don't have and what they're doing, and they're a year early, and it's kind of crazy. But, their defense has been too good for the last 3 weeks, and it's due to let them down.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm just trying to be objective and not doing the thing of, I don't like superstitiously want to undermine the Niners by being so overconfident. Yeah, this is the matchup that they would have wanted among the potential matchups. I think the Rams were scarier. And so the Rams being out of it, these Packers, look, they couldn't, if they lose this game, they were not, they just weren't a Super Bowl team. I think that's the way you have to look at it. So, and yeah, I'm very excited for it, Ryan. I'm very excited for this, and I would like to wish you luck, but I can't. I wish you luck with your newborn baby. That's what I wish you luck with.
I appreciate that. You know how challenging that can be with the middle of the night and all that. So,
well, I think it's very impressive.
It's so gratifying, though. It's unbelievable having this edition, and actually her sisters are like taking to her very well. They're not, they are way more affectionate towards her than I might have even predicted. And, you know, they're not, they don't seem to feel threatened about their like spot, you know? So I'm very happy with how it's going so far.
How much girl dad merch do you have?
Zero.
Yeah, good.
The,
I don't like that. I'm
yeah.
not into the branding of it. Now, don't be offended if you're a girl dad and you've got the shirt and you're listening to this. I know Tom Haberstroh might have a shirt or two. I just, it's it insists upon itself, as was said in Family Guy of The Godfather. You just be a parent. It's not like I can brand. I think I'm sensitive because I'm a boy dad. It's like, what, you think you're better than me because you're a girl
that was
dad?
like
How
another.
dare you?
I didn't stress this on the Minahan show because I mean, who really cares? But I will say, like, I was doing this work from the hospital room like the day after a baby
How
was
dare you,
born.
Portnoy? This man is a father.
No. I put it out there in the public and it deserves to be criticized, but I would say like it went really fast and I was not, sitting at my desk on a normal work day, like grinding this out and thinking about exactly how to present it and do it. And so I don't want to use that as an excuse though, because we publish it. What does he care if I have a baby? Like I just, messed up something on his business. But that was like another element that I didn't really bring up.
Yeah. How dare you, Portnoy? This is a girl dad, a freshly 3-time girl dad. For you to put this man through this crucible, threaten his life. It's just disgusting. It's horrible. It's worse than what you said about Sam Ponder. Clip that, Maze. He needs to know. Ryan, get back to being a new dad once again. Congratulations. 3, that's very impressive. And hey, congrats on the breaking story as well.
Thank you. Good job by you.
Good job by you.